good evening to all once again, and good morning to Dr. Mauricio. And thank you for joining for this program, sir. And so we can start, I think. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming for this last session of the Demystifying Vedic Cosmology. And let me start. All right. Start the slideshow. So in today's topics, we're going to review session number 2, just to remember a little bit what we saw there. And then we're going to get into today's topics, which are the realm of the demigods. Afterwards, we're going to go, and that will take a big chunk of today. It's very, very interesting. And then we're going to get into the vertical dimension, trying to understand what that vertical dimension is, which is a little bit mysterious still for us. And by taking the idea of the planisphere that we saw in session 2, we're going to see if we can possibly solve some other problems, such as the size of the universe, the distance to stars, and the reference to the Southern Cross. So remembering what we saw last time, we were looking at Bhumandala and trying to figure out, what is this Bhumandala? What is it, like a flat Earth? Is it, it can't be, it's too big, it's too different. So what we said is that we could look at it according to the standard accommodation, which is a polar projection, basically. And by looking at this polar projection, we said, let's take the distance from the center of Mount Meru to the end of Bharatvarsha to be the distance from the North Pole to Kanyakumari, which is the southernmost tip of India. If we do that, then this polar projection, we end up having that Jambudvip, which is the first and center island of Bhumandala, is the basically the northern hemisphere of the Earth, right? And we also saw that this was also what traditionally, that's why we call it the standard accommodation, traditionally Indian scholars had done in the past. We then said, well, one of the things that they did, it seems, when they created this this globe, doing an inverse projection from the Bhumandala plane onto a sphere, is that they mapped all of these other islands, such as Shamali Dvip, Lakshadvip, Pushkar Dvip, etc. They mapped it onto the sphere, but they did it having all of them to be exactly the same thickness. And we know from the Bhagavatam that they are not, that generally they start increasing in size as 2 times the previous island and ocean. And so what we did was we did an inverse projection. And what we saw was that the first island beyond Jambudvip, which is Plakshadvip, ended up being started at 48 degrees south of the equator. And so that is very near the tip of South America, which is 54.8 degrees. And if you keep going, it becomes smaller and smaller in a very small size here. And this, we said that this makes sense because what this projection might be telling us is that Jambudvip is the habitable Earth. And we were able to describe the seasons, the phases of the moon, and the eclipses with that, and include the descriptions of South Central Asia, which are spoken about in the Bhagavatam. We talked about the daily and yearly motion of the sun and how we could see this going from a Earth-centered view to a planisphere view. We looked at the eclipses and said that Rahu and Ketu have traditionally been, by Jyotish, they have been identified with the lunar nodes. We talked about planisphere and versus flat Earth, and we said that all the problems that you have if you think that the planet, that Bhumandala is that first of all, everyone should see the pole star, and that we can't explain this strange motion of the sun that we have here if you just say that, oh, it's a flat Earth. We also said that according to the Bhagavatam, there are all of these descriptions of how diametrically opposite places on Earth should see sunset, sunrise, midday, and midnight. But how, if you have the simple version of a plane, you will always be seeing sunrise or some sort of light at all times, and this contradicts the Srimad Bhagavatam. We looked at also the terminator, which is this big this sharp edge between the day and the night, and how it changes during the equinoxes and during the summer solstices. If we were to extend the polar projection to encompass the whole solar system, then we could see that something like the Manasotira mountain lines up with the orbit of the sun, specifically at the point where it's in the winter solstice. And we could also see that the planetary orbits from the view of an Earth-centered model would line up with some of the features of Bhumandala. We looked also at the fact that this correlation is not perfect, but is highly improbable. And that this idea was also given by Indian traditionalists. So it is an appropriate interpretation of Bhumandala. And another projection, we saw that it was the Entropy Prishni model, which was the idea of taking the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole to be the distance from the center of Bhumandala all the way up to the end of Saptadvip. And if we did that, then we get very interesting correspondences for the Bhumandala features and for the Earth features. So this takes us to today, the realm of the demigods. We ask, where are the earthly heavens? If you remember, we talked about all of these amazing places in Jambudvip, right? That had these big trees that had huge fruits, and all the inhabitants, if they drank from this river that was created from when these fruits came down, would live for many thousands of years. How the demigods are just sporting in this place. So and so many amazing descriptions that you say, like, I've never seen that. Well, I've never seen Sumeru. What to speak of all these other things? This is a mountain that goes from the earth to the moon 2 to 3 times, and it's made out of solid gold. Somebody has to have seen it. So where are all these things? Where are all these places? So let us start with looking at a little bit of Sankhya. So we'll explain how perception is given if we understand the Sankhya philosophy. The model of Sankhya, this triguna theory, the idea of sattva, rajas, and tamas, or goodness, passion, and ignorance, is a model within the Sankhya philosophy, and it describes both states of mind and also interactions with the external objects and situations. This, as I said, these gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, or goodness, passion, and ignorance, they describe states of mind such as clear thinking, being calm, being positive, being effective, while the rajas is a racing mind, or being overly excited, irritable, anxious. This is the mode of passion. And the mode of ignorance is, or tamas, is described by being cloud thinking, or somebody being fatigued, negative, prone to depression. And these three also allow for different things, such as sattva, or goodness, allows for proper discrimination. Rajas for creativity or drive, and tamas for rest. And I've given here just few prototypical pictures of what somebody in sattva, rajas, and tamas looks like. But we have to understand that we are always in a constant fluctuation of these three, and it's always a mix. It's not that somebody is completely sattvic or rajasic or tamasic. So that's important to understand. But if you were to like classify somebody in sattva, a prototypical person in sattva would be somebody that like this lady. She is going to places like where people are suffering, and trying to help, trying to give of herself selflessly. So that's sattva. Then you have people that are in rajasic mode, which are, a prototypical person would be somebody like and please forgive me if any of you are bankers, but somebody that is in like that, just in a rush, trying to accomplish something, trying to escalate the ranks of the job and things like that. So and anxiety, this thing is very rajasic. And somebody in tamasic mode, you could think of somebody who is addicted to drugs, and depressed all the time. So it's not that anybody is any of these three necessarily, but these are just like prototypical people that you can, where you can find the mode being very very prominent, and we're always in a constant fluctuation between the three. But not only are people, but also everything is made out of a mixture of gunas, and that's why we get influenced into being more of one, more in the other. So here we have places that are in the three modes. You have places like Darjeeling, right, in the Himalayas, or the Alps, where you have fresh air, natural light, where there is life growing all around you. Everything is fresh. So that's a place in the mode of goodness, or sattva. Then I was living, not too long ago in New York. This is a prototypical place, which is in the mode of passion, rajas. It's the go, 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 get. There's not a minute to lose. something exciting is always happening. Your senses are being stimulated all the time. And then you have a tamasic place, or a place that is in the mode of ignorance, such as a crack alley, a place where there's prostitution, all these things. These are where gang wars are happening. These are tamasic places. We can also think of food, overly spicy, overly salty. And we have foods in the mode of ignorance also, which are, very stale, decomposed. And here is an example of tequila, a shot of tequila, which is very often accompanied by putting a worm in it, and you drink both the tequila and the worm. So this and it's not just food and place; it's also food, music, actions, people, everything that affects our state of mind. And there is a constant dynamic predominance among the gunas. So sometimes, you may be in one place and something happens and your state of mind changes, because nothing in this world is completely one or other. And so if you remember this from the previous sessions, we talked about how from Mahavishnu, time comes, and this primordial material, pradana, comes. And when these combine, then you have something called Mahatattva. This Mahatattva is basically the pradana, which has broken up into the three gunas, into goodness, passion, and ignorance, right? And so as these combine, then they create the material ego. And when this Mahatattva is within our own bodies, it is called the chitta. Now, this material ego, it further develops depending on whether it develops in goodness, in passion, and ignorance. If it develops in goodness, then it creates the mind and the devatas. When it develops in passion, it creates the intelligence, the knowledge-acquiring senses, and the action senses. And when it develops in ignorance, it develops the subtle and gross elements and the outward organs of action. And let's look at this last one a little bit more. The material ego, developing in ignorance, develops what are called the tanmatras, or the subtle elements: sound, touch, form, taste, and odor. And when these and sound creates the organs of action, the organ of action ear, and creates the mahabhuta, or the gross element of space. When space and sound combine, they create touch. And so all of these other elements come into being, from the subtlest, which is sound, to the grossest, which is odor, and nose, and earth. Now, what is we were saying that we were going to try to understand perception, because we want to know, why can't we see these realms of demigods? Well, according to Sankhya philosophy, we have this 13-fold instrument, which is basically the 5 action senses, or karmendriyas, and the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, or gyanendriyas. And the 5 action senses are speaking, grasping, walking, excreting, and procreating, while the 5 knowledge acquiring senses are hearing, touching, seeing, tasting, and smelling. And then there is the internal organ, or the antakarana. This internal organ, we generally just call it the mind. In here in the West, we just say, oh, the mind. But in Sankhya philosophy, they divide it into 3. They divide it into the buddhi, manas, and ahankar. The buddhi is what we could call the intellect. Manas is the mind, and ahankar is the false ego. Again, here in the West, you just put all of them together and say, oh, this is all just the mind. But according to the according to this different understanding of the different faculties, we can see that the buddhi could be talked about as the reflective discerning, that capacity which discerns, that decides, that ascertains, while the manas is that part of our subtle being that is in charge of intentionality. It explicates, it elaborates intellectually. And then the false ego or hankar is that function of self-awareness or self-delusion also. And we can further say that the functions of these three combined. Well, let's look at the complete function of each one of these. The five knowledge acquiring senses are said to be illuminating or manifesting. Again, we're looking at how we perceive things. So the hearing, touching, seeing, tasting, smelling, they illuminate an object. They manifest the object, prakash. Then the action senses are said to be holding, dharana, while these last one, intellect, mind, and false ego, are said to be grasping, apprehending, ahadana. And they also support the five vital airs, such as these five vital airs are the ones that are in our body. And some of you may have heard of the prana. That's one of those five airs. But there's also udana, vyana, samana, and udana. So these are the five, and they are supported by these three. It is also worth mentioning that the five action senses and the five knowledge acquiring senses they function only in the present, while the intellect, mind, and false ego, they function in the three times, which is the past, the present, and the future. There's also a very suggestive vocabulary, terminology in the Sankhya philosophy, which say that these five action senses and five knowledge acquiring senses are doors, while the intellect, mind, and false ego, they are the doorkeepers. Now, what is the subtle body made of? What is our subtle body made of? So it is made up of the intellect, the false ego, and the five subtle elements. And it is said to be accompanied by the mind and the 10 senses. So these subtle elements are the tanmatras that I talked about previously. Some authors, some pundits, they just put all of these together and they say that it's a subtle body. Some made the distinction of no, it's only these three. Some only say that it's the five subtle elements. But in general, in some way or another, it has to have all of these elements. This subtle body of ours is said to be nourished by the gross body, and it is this subtle body that transmigrates from life to life. The gross body stays and it decays, but the subtle body it transmigrates. And then it is also said that the shape of this subtle body becomes like that of the external body when developing in the womb. So as the gross body starts to develop, also the subtle body starts to develop with it into its shape. Now, here's where we start getting into a little bit more into the perception. These and combining what we said about the gunas with these subtle elements. The objects, there are objects that are called specific and objects that are called non-specific. The objects that are specific are said to be constituted by all the three gunas. goodness, passion, and ignorance, sattva, rajas, and tamas. While the non-specific objects are said to be constituted only by one of the gunas. And these tanmatras, these subtle elements, sound, touch, form, taste, and odor, these are said to be non-specific. That means that they are only constituted by one of the gunas. Which guna? Sattva only. And because of that, these subtle elements give only pleasure. They're characterized by pleasure. And thus, well, let me just tell you then a little bit about the gross elements, and we'll come back to this. The gross elements are the Mahabhutas, right? Space, air, fire, water, and earth. They are said to be specific. So these specific objects are constituted by all three gunas, and they're characterized because of that, by pleasure, pain, and delusion. Now, the subtle elements, or these tanmatras, right? Because they only give pleasure, they operate only in the sphere of the demigods. And it is said that only that these subtle elements are only apprehended by knowledge acquiring senses of the demigods, and also by the yogis, who by their practices are able to apprehend these elements as well. Then there's also the gross elements, and these are apprehended, right, by the knowledge acquiring senses of the human beings, the yogis, and the demigods. So here we have the solution to why we can't see these other realms in some sense, because we are only able to perceive these gross elements, while the demigods even the yogis are able to perceive the subtle elements, the tanmatras. See? So how does perception work on the gunas? That's still something that we have to investigate a little bit further. But what we know from the yoga tradition, right? So this is the Sankhya within yoga, is that if we have an object, then the mind, the manas, right, comes out and takes hold of this and takes the shape of this object, right? And the soul shines consciousness on the mind. This mind then, because of its shape, reflects this onto the intelligence, and then the soul is able to perceive what is shown on the intelligence. So all of the 10 senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and the 5 action senses, they perceive an object and they give this information to the mind. The mind gives it to the intelligence, and the intelligence passes it on to the soul. So what is reality really? Reality, we can say that is a layered reality, and that the yogis have perception of this layered reality because they have perception of the tanmatras, or the subtle elements. And 2 analogies that I like to give very often is this one of the addresses. If somebody gives you the address, right, of such and such avenue and street, then you would be able to go to this place, and if they tell you like, oh, it's amazing, it has jacuzzis and it has these wonderful big screen TVs and incredible views and all that, and then you come to this address where they told you that, and you only see the entrance of the building. You say like, where's the jacuzzi, right? Where's the great views? I don't see any of that here. But the problem is that you have gotten to the address, but you have not gone up to the penthouse. You have not gone up. Even though you're at the place, you have not gone into that third dimension. They gave you the two-dimensional address of street and avenue. That's the two-dimensional, but they forgot to give you this third dimension, right? So that one has to do with looking at the layered reality. You have to be able to see this other layer. Even though you're at the same place, you're only looking at the gross manifestation of it, not at the tanmatras. But another one that another way of looking at it that I like better is that the yogis have augmented reality. So some of you might have seen this these goggles of augmented reality that allow you to see more than there is. Like they put a layer of things. So, you know, they'll tell you like, oh, this is where the bathrooms are. You know, in here, this is a restaurant, and there's Wi-Fi over here. And by the way, you know, somebody just posted something on Facebook, and you know, so somebody is calling you right now. So this augmented reality, what it does is that on top of the reality that you're seeing with your eyes, it puts on an extra layer of information. And something that happened a couple of years ago, I don't know if some of you saw this, the Pokemon Go, which was a big deal. And it was the idea that with your phone, you would play Pokemon Go anywhere in the world. And if you had this app on your phone, then you would be able to see that, you know, as you're walking down the street, suddenly there is one of these Pokemons around, and then you can capture it, or maybe somebody also has another Pokemon Go in their phone, and then suddenly you say like, oh, now I can fight with this person, you know, with my Pokemon. And so there is this whole reality that is going on for you and this other person that somebody who does not have this app on their phone will not be able to see. For everyone else, they're just like looking at a store, right? But because you have this app on your phone, suddenly you are able to see these other creatures that exist in this, in this layered reality. So that's how I see the way that the yogis are able to perceive the world. They have this app. They have downloaded this app into their consciousness. It is also said that that the yogis are able to have their macro and microcosms aligned. So what some of these yogis do is that they access these other realms by connecting their Sushumna channel. This is the main channel that runs along the axial direction of the human from the top of the head down to the perineus, and is the main nadi. Energy goes through it, and if they're able to align that to the universal axis that goes basically, you know, from Bhumandala through Mount Meru all the way to Brahmaloka, then as they're meditating on the different chakras in their bodies, they're able to access the different worlds that there are in the universe. So how do we explain, you know, these other places like Plakshatveep and Shimalidweep and all, you know, where's Bhumandala? We can say that Bhumandala maybe is an extension of the horizon of somebody in India, because, you know, they talk about all of these places in India, such as the Bhagavatam talks about this place of the Alakananda River, right? It talks about the Himalayas, but then we don't hear anything about New York. We don't hear anything about Africa directly, right? So maybe and this is just a postulation that we're working on right now at the Bhaktivedanta Institute of Higher Studies, is that the Tanmatra plane, there may be this Tanmatra plane that extends from Hastinapur, and that is the vision that Shukadeva Goswami had as he was talking to Maharaj Parikshit. And maybe in different places of the earth, we could see a different Vedic universe, depending on where we're at. These realms exist in these tangent planes made of Tanmatras. And if you want to go basically, like, let's say from India to Gainesville, where I am right now, right? You would normally take this normal human travel through the Mahabhuta sphere. But if you're in India and you jump onto this Tanmatra plane, then you would have a different special travel through this plane rather than through the Mahabhuta one. And then you would see all of the things that they tell you in there that we couldn't before. And these points here, where you could jump from the Mahabhuta sphere to the Tanmatra plane, these may be what we call the gates, or the portals even. There's another possibility of understanding the different islands of Bhumandala, and that is concentric shells. Maybe Maharaj Priyavrata in the Srimad Bhagavatam, who is said to have divided the earth into these different islands. Maybe he divided them in different shells, and what we see basically is just the innermost shell, and not the outer ones, which are made of tanmatric substance. This is a possibility. We're still working on understanding how the other islands occur in our Mahabhuta sphere. So let us go into now the second topic for today, which is the vertical dimension. What is the vertical dimension? Well, we try to think of this sequence that was given to us: Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, right? And they were given to us with specific heights. And it's very strange because we have never seen, any of these planets being described in this sequence and being above, Earth. So what is this vertical dimension all about? Well, what we tried initially when looking at this problem was maybe they're connected to the inclination of these planets to the ecliptic plane, to the plane where the sun is moving, and basically it's the maximal inclination. For example, here is the one of the moon, which is 5.14 degrees. It goes from 5.14 degrees to minus 5.14 degrees to the ecliptic plane, which is 23.4 degrees from the equatorial plane of the Earth. But when we look at this inclination, what we notice is that there is really not a linear relation to it as we would want, as we would hope, so that we could explain, they're just talking, this height above Bhumandala is just an inclination in degrees. No, we can't say that, unfortunately. So we have to look at it in other terms. And what we did is ask somebody from the Jyotish tradition, does this sequence make any sense to you? The sun, the moon, the group of stars, the Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Ursa Major, and Dhruva. Does this make, or the poles are right? Does this make any sense to you? And they said, yes, it makes sense. If you take the sun, the moon, then according to Jyotish, according to astrology, they are said to be the most influential planets on the astrological chart. So it would make sense that they are closer to us, Bhumandala, because they are most influential. And then the group of stars, the nakshatras, the 28 nakshatras, these group of stars that define the path of the moon. In the Bhagavatam, they're said to be the daughters of Daksha and the wives of the sun god, of the moon god. They're the wives of the moon god. And so it would make sense that they follow their husband. And they're also important in the planisphere as reference points. So again, we're seeing that if we take this from the point of view of Jyotish, it starts making sense. But what about the other planets? Well, if we look at the other planets, such as Venus, Mercury, and Mars, they are said to be the inner planets, and they correspond to a person's inner life. While Jupiter and Saturn, they correspond to a person's external or social life. So it outer planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are further away than the inner planets, because the inner planets they're closer to us in terms of the inner life. And it is also important to note that the Bhagavatam, in this chapter where it describes the planets, it describes them in Jyotish terms. So this interpretation that we're giving here right now is appropriate. And this is also congruent with the Bhagavatam narrative of talking about everything in terms of Jyotish. The vertical dimension, also has these other planets, and the fifth canto doesn't mention planets above Dhruvaloka, above the pole star. We know that there are higher planets above Dhruvaloka, such as Maharloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, which are planets of the rishis, of the sages, and above that is the planet of Lord Brahma. But this information is not given in the fifth canto. That is given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in one of his commentaries as an added on information from another Purana. But the fifth canto itself of the Bhagavatam doesn't explicitly mention them. And but the fifth canto does mention other planets very, very quickly, such as the Shishimar constellation. Well, these are planets in the Shishimar constellation, but they are not given heights. An example, they talk about the planet of Indra, the planet of Agni, Dharma, Prajapati, Data, and Vidata. But we don't know where they're located in this vertical dimension. They're just said to be situated in the Shishimar constellation. This Yoga Sutras commentaries, they tell us that Indraloka is above Dhruvaloka. So one question that we might ask is, why would Shukadev Goswami in the Bhagavatam not give the height of something as important as Indraloka? Indra is the demigod of rain, and he's also the ruler of all the demigods. So why isn't he given the predominance to say, like, well, if we're talking about all of these other planets, such as the moon, the stars, Mars, Mercury, Venus, why aren't we talking about Indraloka as well? And the reason that I want to convey here is that we see in our studies is that Shukadev Goswami was probably being practical. the horizontal plane is being used right now to explain Jyotish, to explain what is the most auspicious time to die, specifically for Maharaj Parikshit, and is not really used as a comprehensive view of the entire universe, because at this moment in time, in the narrative of the Bhagavatam, the person who is hearing the Bhagavatam is Maharaj Parikshit, and he is going to die in 7 days. A comprehensive view of the entire universe is not really helpful for somebody who is going to die, but telling this person when is an auspicious time to die is a concern that the person might have. So, as I said previously, astronomy was mostly used for astrology, for Jyotish, for performing yagyas, and to know what is the most auspicious time for something. Indraloka, Satyaloka, etc. These are all important places in the universe, but they're not so influential in somebody's astrological chart. And because of that, we're making the case here that they're barely spoken in the 5th canto. Shukadev Goswami uses the horizontal plane, the polar plane, to explain what? To explain the movements of the sun, the change in the day length, and the movements and astrological influences of the planets. So I want you to note on the practicality here that he is giving most elaborate descriptions of places in Jambudvip, which is where King Parikshit rules. And all the other Dvipas, such as Plakshadvip, Shamali Dvip, Pushkar Dvip, these are not so much mentioned. They're very quickly mentioned. And also the underground heavens, such as Patala, Atala, Vitala, and all of these underground heavens. They're very quickly mentioned. There's also no description of life in the sun or in the moon, etc. Although we know from other places in the Bhagavatam that the moon, for example, is a place where people who have acted very piously, who have done a lot of yagyas, if they earn it, they can go to this moon planet where everything is so amazing, where they'll be able to enjoy for many years. But this description of life there is not given in the Bhagavatam because it is not so relevant to the king at this moment. That's the case we're making. Now let's look at some other things that this model that we're creating here can explain, such as the size of the universe. If you remember, we talked about how the universe, the Vedic universe, the Bhumandala, right? It goes a little bit beyond the orbit of Uranus. And then somebody might say, well, what about Neptune? What about Pluto? What about the Milky Way? What about, the whole universe? Like, is the 5th canto saying that our universe is so small, that everything is so small? Well, what we see here, if we use the model of the planisphere, is that we can say that a successful model can solve other problems. And so if we are able to take this planisphere and apply it to other problems that were not initially thought about, it might give you a sense of this model being successful. If the 5th canto is really a horizontal plane, if it's this planisphere, then this Bhumandala is not necessarily the size of Bhumandala is not necessarily the size of the universe. It's just the size of our model. It's the size of how big we want to extend the planisphere in order to talk about the universe. But it's not really the size of the whole universe. This will also this we can also see if we start looking at the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam word for word. word for word in 5:20:38, it says that the distance between Meru, Mount Meru, right here in the center, and Loka Loka Mountain, which is the big mountain that separates the region which is illuminated by the sun and that one which is not illuminated by the sun. It says that the distance between Meru and Loka Loka Mountain is 1/4 the diameter of Bugola. 1/4 the diameter of Bugola. That is to say, the round Earth, which measures 500 million yojanas. This Bugola, Srila Prabhupada translated it as the universe, probably because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and also Sridhar Swami, they took it that way and made calculations on the distances from Mount Meru to the edge. So we have to say, though, that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sridhar Swami, they take the Bhagavatam very literally. And because of that, at some point, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur started seeing that he was running into problems, such as the pastime of Lord Varahadev. Varahadev is the incarnation of the Lord, of Krishna, that is a boar, the boar incarnation. And the story is that this demon Hiranyaksha caused the earth to fall into the ocean, into the ocean that is right beneath here, right? The half of the universe is filled with an ocean, so it made it plunge into it, and so the Lord had to take this incarnation of a boar to be able to rescue it, go into the water and pull it out. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur noticed a problem here, and is that if you have the Bhumandala to be the radius of the Brahmanda of the universe, right? If it's perfectly aligned, then the problem is that it will be stuck there, right? If it's exactly the diameter of the egg shell, then it will get stuck there. So he had to decrease. He basically just very straightforward and randomly decided to decrease the size of Bhumandala by a certain amount, so that it could be smaller, and therefore it could go through and be able to dip into the ocean. Otherwise, it would get stuck there. So this, he did it very straightforward, blatantly, because it was a problem. But this is because he was taking this Bhugola to be the universe, this Bhumandala to be the universe. But it's really just the round Earth. Also, the word for meaning of this other verse in the Bhagavatam is that beyond Alokavarsha. Alokavarsha is the last this last island of Bhumandala, which is dark. Beyond Alokavarsha, which is the end of Bhumandala, is the Vishuddha path or destination of Yogeshvar, or those who desire to go to him. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur again takes this to be the end of the universe, and says that the yogis pierce through the shell of the universe, desiring liberation. So, but this does not necessarily mean that it's the end of the universe, but it's just, we can just take it to be the end of the planisphere projection, and therefore the universe could be any size that we really want. What Shukadev Goswami may be hinting at here is that we're just making it big enough. We're just making this model, this planisphere, big enough to account for all of the planets that we are able to see with the naked eye, which is up to Saturn, and thereafter, a little bit more, but that's it. If we take it to be that way, then we are solving the size of the universe. The universe is not just 500 million yojanas. That is only the size really of Bhumandala, but that is only our model. So that may be a possible solution to the size of the universe. Now, there's also the distance to the stars. If you remember, we talked about how the stars are here, the 28 constellations, right? And they are after the moon and they are before Venus. And you could say like, wait, hold on. The closest star that we know of, the closest star that we know of is 4 light years away from us. That means that if you take a spaceship that could go to at the speed of light, we're nowhere even near that. But if you had such a spaceship that could go at the speed of light, it would take you 4 years to get there and 4 years to come back. So and this is the closest star that we have to us. And there are stars that are billions of light years away. So how could it be that the constellations are so close to Bhumandala? Well, the distance to the star is not an issue if you take Bhumandala to be this planisphere, to be this horizontal plane, because it's not actually calculating distances from the Earth planet to these other planets. One possibility that we have here is to understand the vertical dimension in terms of Jyotish, in terms of how influential it is on an astronomical chart. But there's another way that I would like to show you, and it's could be a measure of how sattvic a planet is. So let's look at the descent of the Ganges. This is another chapter in the 5th canto. It is said that the Ganges is the water coming from the causal ocean. You remember that all of the universes they're floating on this causal ocean on which Mahavishnu is lying. And this water is coming through a hole that was made by the toe of Lord Vamanadev, Trivikram, in his pastime with Bali Maharaj. He pierced the coverings and of the universe, and this water from the causal ocean started coming down. First, to Satyaloka, going down all the way up to the Saptarishi, the Ursa Major. And then it is said that through millions of airplanes, of celestial planes, this water is taken from there to the moon planet. And then this water continues, falling down all the way up to the Earth. And it comes here to the Earth, specifically to the center of Mount Meru, where it divides into 4, and the southern branch of it is called the Alakananda River. That branch is the one that eventually reaches us as the Ganges that we see today. So if you notice, though, the sun, the moon, and the North Pole, they're not in a straight line in 3D space. In 3D space, the North Star is and Mount Meru, they're pointing here, at 90 degrees from the equatorial plane. While if you the moon, the sun is at 23.4 degrees from the equatorial plane. It's not 90 degrees, and the moon is a further 5.14 degrees above that this ecliptic plane. So at most, the sun and the moon are at 28, 29 degrees from the equatorial plane. There, so if we say that the water is falling from the moon to the sun and then down to Earth to the center of Mount Meru, it would somehow have to go from the sun here to this moon to the side, and then it would have to jump to the 90 first from 23.4 degrees to then 28, 29 degrees, and then it would have to jump to 90 degrees. So from the Earth's equatorial plane, which makes no sense because this is not a straight line. But this does suggest that there must be another type of space that somehow there must be another type of space that allows for this verticality to manifest. And so what we are saying here is that a possibility may be an extrusion. The vertical dimension may be an extrusion. For those of you who have used AutoCAD, or these programs that technical drawing, you will know what an extrusion is. You take a shape, a two-dimensional shape, right? Like a square or a sphere. A square or a circle. And if you extrude it, you get you get a cube. And if you extrude something like a circle, you get this cylinder. So maybe what is happening, and this is just a proposition that we have here, is that we take the Bhumandala plane and we extrude it in the vertical dimension, right? And this new direction is the direction of sattva. So it's not really three-dimensional space. Three-dimensional space is here, right? It's Bhumandala, right? But then we extrude it, and then we have this vertical dimension, which is sattva. Obviously, the Brahmaloka, the place of Lord Brahma, is the one that has the highest sattva. It is in the mode of goodness. And here on the earth, we have we're basically in rajas. And then these patala, tala, vitala, they're more in the mode of ignorance. And so the higher the planet, the more sattvic. That's what we think that this vertical dimension could mean. Now, let's look also at the Southern Cross. There's a problem in the Bhagavatam. Not a problem. Yes, it is a problem, and it's the fact that it mentions the pole star, but it doesn't mention Sigma Octantis and the Southern Cross. Sigma Octantis is the pole star in the southern hemisphere. So somebody who is in Argentina, they will see the pole star of the southern hemisphere, Sigma Octantis. They will not see Dhruvaloka, the pole star of that in the northern hemisphere. Somebody in Argentina or Australia, they will also see the Southern Cross, and they will not see the pole star. So why have these been left out? Well, somebody could say, well, the Southern Cross is referred to in the 9th canto with the whole story of Trishanku. I will not go into the story of Trishanku because we're running out of time, but that's in the 9th canto. And you could also say, well, Satyaloka, or the planet of Lord Brahma, is also explained elsewhere in the Bhagavatam. So what we are proposing here is that the 5th canto seems to be dedicated to creating a practical model of the universe for Maharaj Parikshit. This is a model that is at the place where he is at, which is the northern hemisphere. That's why Shukadeva Goswami used the pole star with the planets and countries that are most relevant for him. So that's why emphasis was given on Jambudvip and not on the other planets and other varshas and things. And it's also, and because of that, it's not so much a comprehensive view of the entire universe by the demigods, but it's more something very practical for Maharaj Parikshit. And this takes us to the question that we began with: are we alone? the scientists, they have right now they have been able to look at planets around us that are habitable, according to saying they're in the habitable zone, they're not in the habitable zone. They are able to see their composition through the spectra coming in through their telescopes. But maybe we have to start looking a little bit more into other things like the composition of sattva, rajas, and tamas, or goodness, passion, and ignorance, in order to actually appreciate all of the life that is out there in the universe. And with this, I conclude my presentation, and thank you for your time. And I'm open to any questions that you may have at this moment.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Mauricio, for your valuable time. And in fact, you made the complex topics of Vedic cosmology a little bit easy for us to understand. And I would say the content, presentation slides, and graphics, they have been very attractive, and they depict the concept very beautifully. It's really very thought-provoking, sir. And so can we take a few questions, sir?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so may I request all the participants who wish to ask questions, please type in the chat box. I will read out the question for you. And meanwhile, I will see there are a few questions already there. Okay, sir. So we'll start. Dr. Varun Shukla is asking, which part of Earth is facing Mount Meru?
Which part of Earth is facing Mount Meru? Well, if you saw, let me get from here. If you saw from the different models that we gave, it really depends on how you look at it. But Mount Meru, if you take this polar projection, it would be right here on the northern hemisphere, right? Mount Meru would be at the North Pole. So Jambudvip, would be this northern hemisphere. So you could say that it's in the northern hemisphere. That is the one that is facing Mount Meru in some way. But again, Mount Meru, also remember that is on maybe on a different plane, because it's made out of tanmatras. I hope this satisfies your question.
Dr. Varun Shukla, I think you got the answer, sir. Okay, you can unmute yourself if you have some further query. And meanwhile, we'll take to the next question. Mr. Venkat is asking, a person seeing lower heaven and person seeing upper heaven, is there any difference of perception due to quality or consciousness? Kindly explain in detail.
Southern and northern hemisphere, he means? Is that the question? Somebody in the southern and northern hemisphere?
Yes, sir. So he's trying to understand which is the lower heaven and the person seeing the upper heaven. So what is the difference of perception due to quality of consciousness?
Well, first of all, if you're in the southern hemisphere and in the northern hemisphere, what you may be seeing is a little bit different. Like this model that we have here is for the northern hemisphere, and it seems to be more appropriate for Maharaj Parikshit, who was living in India, specifically in Hastinapur at that time. But if you were in, if you were in the southern hemisphere, maybe Shukadeva Goswami might have given a different model, and that's what we mentioned in here when we said that maybe somebody is here in looking at one tanmatric plane, and somebody who is down here may have a different tanmatric plane. Now, will the two of them coincide? maybe to some degree, maybe not. That's something that we need to do further investigation on. And it will definitely depend on whether or not you're able to see these tanmatric planes or not. Your level of consciousness has to be in such that you're able to perceive the tanmatras. Otherwise, you'll just see, yeah, the northern and southern hemisphere as everybody sees it in the Mahabhuta sphere.
Mr. Venkat, is it okay? Okay, so
Yes, sir.
okay, sir. So again, Mr. Venkat, you have typed one more question. Multiple stars, binary stars as by modern cosmology or Vedic cosmology. So how do we analyze the different explanation from the Vedic perception and the modern perception about the stars and about the dark matter and the dark energy? So how do we understand this? This is the question, I believe.
So even the black holes.
Okay. Yeah. If you followed the logics that I was trying to give here, it seems that what Shukadev Goswami is trying to give to Maharaj Parikshit is not so much a comprehensive view of the entire universe. Like, for a dying person, what is the use of knowing about black holes? For a dying person, what is the use of knowing about binary star systems? It's not so much, interesting for it's not so relevant, especially if you have a very limited time of 7 days. You don't have time to waste. So what we're proposing here is that Shukadev Goswami is giving Maharaj Parikshit a very concise view of the universe, specifically so that he understands just enough about Jyotish, so that he knows when is an auspicious time to die and when it is not. So it gives you the sun, the moon, the stars, and like that, only for the purpose of Jyotish. No, I'm not going to say only, but at least mainly for the purpose of Jyotish, so that Maharaj Parikshit will know when to die, and other things, such as the black holes and all of these things. They're not so relevant to it. Now, having said that, though, some devotees are working right now on understanding certain aspects of Vedic cosmology that may include dark matter. Where the idea of dark matter could be present, but maybe not in a very direct way. As they develop that, we will also talk about it. But at this moment, it's just in a preliminary stage.
Okay, so should we move to next question, sir? And Mr. Tapas is asking, sir, how can we understand the location of lokas, Patal Loka and Swarg Loka, etc.?
Well, according to Jyotish, right? They say that these lower lokas, they are within the earth, that they are chasms within the earth. Now, if you ask any geologist, the geologist will say that, well, no, we have not seen any chasms on the earth like you're mentioning, because we would have seen them already through the shock waves that we when there are earthquakes. We are able to record that, and we are able to see like what is there inside the earth. So we have not been able to see it. If there were chasms, they would show up. But again, this vertical dimension tells us that we're talking about a different dimension, right? It's the dimension of sattva. And so they may be within the earth, but in an extruded way. It is said that many people have said how going through chasms through the earth, they are able to access these places. Like in China, there are these mountains where it is said that people have sometimes been able to go into these other worlds. Or in Hawaii, they say that going into, they know of people who have gone into the volcanoes and gone into other places. But then again, when they do that, space and time changes for these people. So we know that it's not just a physical location, but there's something extra in it. They're actually changing realms, and this is what this is talking about. That you're changing. You're no longer just on the 3D space, but you are going into another direction.
Mr. Tapas, is it okay for you? Okay, sir. We move to next question. Nimai Sarkar is asking, first, I don't know, he or she, I'm sorry. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the explanation. Is there any relation between 7 chakras of human body with 7 lokas? So what is the relationship between 7 chakras and 7 lokas?
So I explained here that some yogis are able to connect their Sushumna channel, the main channel that runs along the body's axis, right, with the universal axis. When they do that, then they're able to connect their different chakras with the different realms. And so when they start meditating on the different chakras, they're actually able to perceive these different realms. And sometimes they even, depending on how advanced these yogis are, they're able to travel to those places and be physically there. Now, from the stories that I've heard, you not only do you have to be like extremely advanced yogi to be able to do this, but also if you don't do it properly, it starts messing up with your body, how your body is reconstituted. And so some of these yogis sometimes have deformities in their bodies because of that travel in between realms.
Thank you so much, sir. And let's move to the next question. Shreyas Goswami asking, it is said in the scriptures that the sun illuminates the entire universe. But today, scientists say that sun is just another star and there are billions of other stars in the universe. So how do we reconcile these two things?
Well, I would probably look at the Sanskrit for that, because as we have seen, sometimes in the Sanskrit they use other words other than universe. So I would first look at that. Is it really universe? What they're saying is that the word that they're using illuminates the entire universe. But let's say for the sake of argument that they do say the entire universe. Well, if we take Bhumandala to be this this polar projection, right? Then we don't have to we don't really have to worry too much about it. Why? Because this polar projection is just a model. It's just a map, right? It's not describing all of the universe. And so when it's saying that the sun is illuminating everything, it means that it's illuminating our whole model. It's not illuminating if we consider our model to be the universe. It's a model of the universe. Then it's illuminating all of the model of our universe, but not necessarily all of the universe. I hope I was clear on that.
Shreyaj, I hope this is okay for you, or like you have some further query. Okay, sir. The second part of our question is that could you please elaborate on like how the nakshatras are described in Bhagavatam or Vedic scriptures?
Say that again.
The second part of our question is that could you please elaborate on how the nakshatras are described in Bhagavatam?
The nakshatras in Bhagavatam vary minimally. It is not explained very much about it. The nakshatras in the Bhagavatam, at least in the 5th canto, it just says it is they are at this height from at this specific height from the moon. They say first you have the sun, the moon, and then the nakshatras, and then it goes into Venus, Mercury, and Mars, and like that. And it says that they describe the path of the moon, right? They call them lunar mansions. They're the lunar mansions because the moon resides, for a little time in each one of them as it goes through its whole cycle. But that's it. Elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, it talks about these nakshatras as being the daughters of Prajapati Daksha, who gave these 27, 28 daughters to the moon god to marry, and I believe that it gives their names. I can't remember about that, but that's about it. It doesn't say much more beyond that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. And Mr. Ankur Dwaj is asking, can we live on Moon or Mars with this body? As science is trying to discover life there, life on Moon or Mars.
Well, right now, Elon Musk and few other and few other scientists they're trying to see how we could live with this body in the moon and in Mars. Creating these spheres, biospheres, where they're trying to. They've been doing this in, I believe, in Arizona. These domes where they have air and they try to circulate water and things like that so that things can grow. So they're trying to create an artificial environment within the moon and within Mars so that we can live with this body there. But obviously, it's not easy. But if you do enough yagyas, if you qualify yourself, then you can actually go to these places, which are heavenly places. And not only will you see just a bunch of rocks, which is what these two places look like for us in their Mahabhuta state, but you will actually see these amazing places. Or unless also you're a yogi, in which case you may be able to go in. Some yogis are, even though they have the capacity sometimes to be able to see these things, they're not allowed to go there. It is said that some of these yogis, through their tapasya, through their austerities and their meditations and all that, they have been able to access these realms. And then suddenly somebody sees them there, and then they're blocked. They're blocked from being able to do it again because they're not qualified. So a lot of this has to do with what is your qualification. Is you can't just, like, if I wanted to go to India right now, I would be stopped at the border. I can get in the plane. You know, that if I get if I get on a plane, and get to India, even if I get on a plane, doesn't mean that I might be able to enter into India beyond the border patrol. So this is what happens also in these heavenly places, because these heavenly places are places where you have to have the right amount of karma points, you know, good karma points, to be able to enjoy there, and not just anybody. If you want to go to all of these very fancy clubs, right? All of these, you'll be stopped at the gate and said, like, excuse me, do you have a reservation? And, you know, are you a member? And you'll say like, no, I'm sorry, and then they'll just turn you away. So likewise, that is what's happening here on a more global scale, on a more cosmic scale.
Mr. Ankar, I believe you have got the answer. Okay, sir, we move to the next question. And Nimai Sarkari again there with another question. Sir, could you please explain that after the expiry of gross body, how subtle body transmigrates? She means to say that we have a subtle body after death. So how is it possible for us to move with that?
I have not looked too much into this topic. It is there are different things that happen when you die. It's not like everybody goes through the same thing. Like the Bhagavatam talks about what happens to a person who is sinful, what they see, and it's very very scary. This is explained in different places there, of what happens to when a sinful person leaves their body, and it's a very scary situation. But there's also what happens to a person that is going to go to a higher planet. That there's another experience there, and generally what I've seen is that in a lot of these places like that, when you're going to be when you're going to be taken to another realm, then there are people there to take you, whether it's, you know, to higher realms or to lower realms. There are people there to guide you to these things. So it's not so much like you have to do, like you have to understand where you're going, what you're doing, but it's more of a question of, you know, like what Prabhupada says, these higher by a higher authority. So basically, people come and they bring you to these other places. That's what I understand right now, but it's much more complicated, and that's a topic to delve into, definitely.
So there's a second part of her question is that, is there anything mentioned in scriptures about time travel?
Yeah, definitely. But it's only for time travel that I've seen in all of this. I have never seen backward time travel. Forward time travel you see in the 11th canto with the story of King Kukudmi. The story of King Kukudmi talks about how this king, you know, brings his daughter Revati to the planet of Lord Brahma. Is asked to stay. You know, he wants to see Lord Brahma, but Lord Brahma is a little bit busy, you know, looking at watching a cultural presentation. Then you know, they're asked to just like stay there for a moment until the presentation finishes. So they do that, and then Lord Brahma comes out. King Kukudmi says like, well, you know, here's my daughter. I want to marry her to a proper suitor. Do you know who could be? And Lord Brahma starts laughing because he says like, well, you know, this small time that you have been here on Earth, like, you know, millions and millions of years have passed, and now all the suitors that you wanted for your daughter are long gone, and so are their names and everything. So so he concluded me that says like, so what do I do now? And then Lord Brahma says, well, right now on earth there is Lord Balaram, so you can marry her to him. And that was a great arrangement. But this is for time travel. By being in another place, then time goes slower in a certain place and faster in another place. There's also that idea with again with Lord Brahma stealing the cowherd boys. So and it's similar to that, because he moves between realms, then there's a time dilation there for him. So that's something that seems to be quite often, and it's time dilation. I have not seen anything where going back in time is possible.
Okay, sir. Thank you once again. And there are one or two questions more, but I believe other people might have more questions. So may I request all the participants to put your question in the mail or WhatsApp. So we'll again take up with the Dr. Garrido and come back to you. Okay, so thank you once again to all the participants. And Dr. Garrido, can you please allow me to share my screen? I have to make
Sure.
a few
Let me
slides.
then stop share. How do I stop sharing here? Okay.
Okay. So, dear participants, once again, thank you. And these are the upcoming programs we have. I hope you are able to see my screen. Can
Yes,
someone
sir.
please? Okay. So, on 28th August, that is coming Sunday, we will be having a session on the art and science of meditation. So, where Mr. Asit Nema, he is a senior environmental consultant, and he has been taking these sessions for quite some time, and he will be explaining us the complete details about the meditation. So we request all of you to please block your time. 28th August, that is 20. Just let me confirm about the date. I think date. Let me confirm. I will share in the WhatsApp. It's 5:30 p.m. Okay. And after that, we have this complete series of upcoming sessions on 7th March and 14th March. 2 sessions will be having on science and religion, that is conflict, cooperation, and coexistence. And this session will be taken by Professor Gopal Gupta from University of Evansville, USA. So this will be 2 sessions course on 7th and 14th March. And moving on, we will be starting a series on Bhagavad-Gita from 21st March. This will be a 6-session course, and from 21st March to 28th April, where we will be explaining practical theology and philosophy. And these are the different topics will be covered: scientific aspects of Bhagavad-Gita, then 5 fundamental truths in Gita, sociological, economical, and management lessons from Gita, historical perspectives, and personal wellness and mental health tips from Bhagavad Gita. So all these topics will be covered under these 6 sessions. So we request to you please stay tuned and block your Sundays for the upcoming sessions as well. And one mega event is also coming up on 22nd and 23rd May. So this is a big conference, international conference, I would say. And the topic is the sustainability, spirituality, and simplicity. So we call it 3S. So we'll understand how these 3 things are interconnected. And this will happen on 22nd and 23rd May. And we will be sharing the complete information with you regarding the registration and the other speakers who are there. All the content will be shared with you, but this will be a like prior information for all of you. Okay, sir. So with this, I think these are the upcoming sessions. And if we have some more point of discussion, we can take it up. Otherwise, we are already up with the time, so we can conclude. So any more comment by any person, you can please type in the chat box. Okay. So I think it's time to close. So thank you once again to today's speaker and to all the participants. Thank you so much. It was very wonderful session, and it's very wonderful time with all of you. Thank you so much.